So our story starts back in 1984 when our first and only woman Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was assassinated in broad daylight. The incident shocked the whole country, but the bigger setback was for women because their icon for female empowerment, the Iron Lady of India, was gone. But it was against this backdrop, a tall, confident girl named Chitra Ramakrishna walked into the office of a banking giant IDBI to work in their project finance division. This 20-year-old chartered accountant was not at all afraid to establish herself in a male-dominated banking industry because she was talented and she knew it. Very quickly, she started rising through the ranks and the senior management at IDBI started to notice her. Now, two of them were industry veterans, R.H. Patil and S.S. Nadkarni, who had some grand plans for the Indian stock market. Now remember, this is back in early 1990s when there was only one stock exchange in India, the Bombay Stock Exchange. So there was a proposal among senior government officials to start a new stock exchange to promote fairness and competition. Now Chitra, with her unmatched talent, charisma and confidence, became an obvious choice to lead the task force. So the IDBI chairman at the time, S.S. Nadkarni, selected Chitra to set up NSE from scratch. So she became the part of the team that set up NSE to provide a fully automated and screen-based trading system. So just to give you guys a context, guys, this is how trading used to be done back in 1990s and this is how trading is done today, right? And a lot of that credit goes to Chitra Ramakrishna. So Chitra very quickly started climbing the ladder of success and in 2013 she became the CEO of National Stock Exchange. She was the third woman in the Asia Pacific region to head a major stock exchange and she clearly became the darling of the media and the poster child for women in leadership positions. And her fame basically just kept growing. The next year she was also named the Forbes Woman Leader of the Year and the Fortune magazine ranked her among one of the most powerful women around the world. Now, Chitra was at the peak of her career and nothing could go wrong, but then something did. On 8th of July 2015, Sucheta Dalal, who had exposed the Harshad Mehta scandal, wrote an article alleging that certain NSE officials were leaking sensitive data to select market participants so that they can trade faster than their competitors. Now, NSE's response to this allegation was rather bizarre because instead of setting up an inquiry or checking out what's really going on, their first reaction was to threaten Sucheta Dalal and later they filed a defamation lawsuit against her for 1 billion rupees. Now this heavy-handed approach against a very respected journalist raised concerns among many industry people. Then in November of the same year, the stock market regulator SEBI received a letter from an anonymous whistleblower who claimed that there was a conspiracy going on in NSE where the senior officials at NSE along with the bureaucrats in the finance ministry and the central government were manipulating the system. Now, of course, this was a serious allegation, so the matter caught CBI's attention and soon SEBI and the income tax department started to look into these allegations. Now, this scam, which later came to be known as the NSE co-location scam, was unlike any other scam that the investigating officials had ever seen. Because, first of all, there were no victims in this scam. Now, normally whenever you see a scam, there is always some kind of a victim, right? Either it can be one person or an institution or maybe a bunch of institutions, right? So like in case of Harshad Mehta, there were certain banks. In case of Nirav Modi scandal, there was the Punjab National Bank, right? But the brilliance of this scam was that there were victims, of course there were victims, but they just did not know it. Now the easiest way to understand this is, let's say somebody steals 10 lakh rupees from you, right? So you will immediately come to notice that there is something wrong, then you will start taking action. But if the same person just steals 10 paisa from you every day, how long do you think it will take for you to see noticeable change in your bank balance? Probably several years or maybe never, right? So in this case, the thief was stealing 10 paisa, but not just from one person. They were stealing it from literally millions of people, and this was happening billions of times. So this is what happened, guys. In August of 2009, when Chitra became the managing director, NSE introduced what is called as a co-location facility, which allowed brokers to place their servers in the same data center as NSE. And of course, these brokers and these institutions, they had to pay a fees for that. Now, what is the reason for having your servers at the same place as that of NSE? Well, because when the broker server sit right next to the stock exchange's server, the data has to physically travel very short distance from the exchange's server to the broker server. And this was the big advantage to all the trading members engaged in high frequency trading. Now the difference in time between a co-located versus a non-co-located server can be in barely milliseconds, but it can make all the difference between a profitable trade and not being able to cash the trade at all. Because a co-located server gets the quote first and the trade would be executed by the time a broker of a non-co-located server got to even see it. But there was nothing illegal about this, right? Whatever I'm talking about, this practice is perfectly legal. It is in fact followed all around the world. However, there was something illegal about what they did next. So what happened was NSE officials started giving some preferential access to certain brokers, because of which these guys were able to skip the line and access all the information before it got distributed to the rest of the co-located participants. So just imagine that if you knew the price of a stock before the rest of the world did, you can make a lot of money, right? So that is basically what was going on. I don't want to get into too much of technicalities here. Essentially, some brokers got advantage of speed and early access. Now the investigators found that this scam ran into hundreds of crores, but that was not the most shocking or bizarre part of the story. That was yet to come. Because as part of their investigation, CBI started to look into the emails of senior NSE officials, and they found out something that they had never expected. Because it turns out that Chitra Ramakrishna was seeking guidance from some mysterious Himalayan yogi, and that was not necessarily a problem, except the fact that the guidance that she was looking for was not in a spiritual sense. She was actually sharing sensitive company information and seeking guidance on company's future, day-to-day operations, and a lot of other things from this spiritual yogi. Now Chitra claims that she knows this yogi for the past 20 years. She met him for the first time somewhere on Himalayas, and ever since they have been in touch over emails. Now people who have read these emails found the nature of relationship between the two very disturbing, because sometimes the conversations used to be very company specific on confidential topics on day-to-day operations, and sometimes they actually got very personal. Sometimes the yogi used to give her feedback about how she looked and how she can look more appealing, and sometimes they used to plan for personal trips in countries such as Seychelles, which are known to be tax havens, right? So clearly there was a lot going on here, both on the professional side as well as on the personal side. But the story gets even more interesting, because on the advice of this yogi, Chitra hires a guy named Anand Subramaniam to the position of Chief Strategy Officer. Now nothing may seem suspicious about this, right? But except the fact that there was no position called Chief Strategy Officer before this guy even joined, right? So this position was actually created for him, and he was paid a whopping salary of 1.68 crore rupees, whereas what he was making in his previous job was merely 15 lakh rupees. Not only that, he was promoted in a very short period of time to the position of Group Operating Officer, and his salary went up to 4 crore rupees. And on top of that, he used to get a lot of exemptions. He was given the flexibility of working from home. He was given royal treatment at NSE. He could travel business class. He used to get all these business accommodations, right? Now we have talked about a lot of things at this point, right? We talked about the co-location scam. We talked about this weird relationship that Chitra had with this mysterious yogi. And of course, we talked about Anand Subramaniam. So let's take a step back, right? So what exactly is going on here? So what we have here is an unholy trinity of Chitra Ramakrishna, Anand Subramaniam, and of course this mysterious yogi, and all these three in some shape or form orchestrating the co-location scam. Now the investigative agencies were able to catch hold of Anand Subramaniam, but their real target was this mysterious yogi, right? So where exactly is he? Where to find him? Now this is where a lot of speculation started to happen, because some people thought that the yogi is nothing but Anand Subramaniam himself, because he was the key benefactor of all this scandal, right? And then some started to believe that maybe yogi is related to Subramaniam somehow, but he is not exactly Anand Subramaniam himself. Well, the mystery is still not solved, right? NSE officials claim that Anand Subramaniam is the yogi himself, whereas SEBI officials believe that yogi might be somebody else. So this is currently an ongoing investigation. Chitra has been sent to jail as we speak, and Anand Subramaniam is also in custody. But there are a lot of unanswered questions in this story, right? So for example, when all these allegations emerged, Chitra resigned from NSE and she was paid 23 crore rupees at that time. So then the question comes that why was NSE paying Chitra this high of an amount instead of actually firing her, right? And secondly, as soon as Chitra Ramakrishna left the company, her laptop was destroyed and all the evidence was lost. Now NSE claims that it is their policy to destroy all the e-waste, but it is also very convenient because the laptop had a lot of evidence which could have easily led to the perpetrators of this scam. And even about the investigative agencies, right? Why did SEBI and CBI take 6 years to unearth this scandal and to get to the point where we are today, given that the scam was already uncovered back in 2015? So the more we learn about the story, the more scandalous it becomes. But at some point, we also start to believe that Chitra Ramakrishnan may not be the real culprit here. Maybe she was part of a broader conspiracy that runs deep into the annals of Indian bureaucracy and politics. But all said and done, we know how these kind of stories play out, right? The real culprits are never brought to justice, because even in this case, Chitra has been penalized with a few crore rupees of fine, but that amount is clearly peanuts as compared to what she could have easily made from the scam, right? Now, whatever happens, guys, we will come to know about that at some point. But one thing is for sure, that Chitra Ramakrishna's falls from grace is a blow to the world of stock market and all the women who looked up to Chitra for breaking the glass ceiling in the male-dominated world.